Hi there. Welcome to tea time. Dr. T. I'm actually not drinking tea today. I'm drinking water, little, alkaline, high pH, good stuff. Um, but most of the time, even when I say I'm drinking tea, I'll like introduce my tea and then I never actually drink it because I'm so busy talking to myself. Um, but today I am going to spend some time talking a little bit about koalas and some things that lead from that. This may make a what? Koalas. This doesn't even connect at all to any of these other videos. But if any of you know me, you might totally understand why this is where this is going and why this whole entire discussion goes this way. And you might have wondered why it has taken so long. Um, but the reason we're going to talk about koalas is, this morning I am reading the news, and I am reading about the fires in Australia, and I am reading the updated reports on the koala population because in Australia we have a very, very sensitive koala population. I mean, we are looking at minimal numbers of koalas left on this planet, specifically because they have, such a specific diet. And so, you know, diversity and isn't really on their side. Evolution's not really on their side. But if you've ever seen a koala bear, they're the freaking cutest things ever. But you might also know they're really slow. Could you imagine if you only ate eucalyptus leaves? You might not move very quickly either. Just kind of take your time. They sleep a lot. Anyway, so I'm reading the updates on these fires in Australia, and devastatingly read that at this point they know that there have been at least 350 koalas burnt to ashes in these fires. I read this sentence and I gasped out loud because it just completely tears me apart that these poor critters are in their home, right? This habitat that has been kind of designed perfectly for them, and it is being ravaged by these absolutely intense fires, and there was nothing that they could do. They absolutely had no way to escape this. And so they burned to a crisp. But like, how awful is that? And it breaks my heart because I absolutely adore all beings, specifically, those four-legged ones. I think everything has a place, everything is necessary, and everything has a right to live. But these poor koalas just didn't have any chance. I mean, the fires also state that there are 3 dead, 7 missing. Humans also, and so this is just a catastrophic fire, and it is more intense than any fire they have ever had, right? This is like a natural thing, just like in California, right? We have these kind of natural fires that always happen, just part of a season, right? There is this fire season. But if you live in California, if you've read any of the reports or paid attention the past few years, these are not normal fires, especially if you've lived in California. And that's exactly what's happening in Australia. I mean, the temperatures, the breadth and depth of these fires are so incredibly intense. And here is where I get worked up, and here is where the struggle really happens, right? Yes, heartbreak because of these animals, like, ugh. But we see time and time again, report after report of these devastating, devastating natural occurrences that are beyond where they should be naturally. And we have people who deny climate change. We have people who sit and will not pay attention to these massive signs of things that are happening that were stated 20 years ago, right? I mean, at least 20 years ago, saying if these are signs of climate change, extreme climate change. And I'm very clear to say climate change and not global warming, right? Because we get wrapped up in the warming aspect. Because all of a sudden we'll start seeing, memes and pictures of crazy blizzards and all these other things. But understanding that a sign of climate change is extreme weather. That means both sides of the spectrum. Okay. And global warming, if you look at, on a scale, every single year is hotter than the last. Okay, so we're not looking at one specific place. So we're not just looking at single weather moments. We're looking at climate. Climate is weather over time. Okay, and so the fact that we can sit back in our cushy little homes, specifically those of us in the US who live in a privileged country, a developed country, so we don't see the effects many other countries have already seen and are dealing with now. We are seeing a lot of them now, but we still just kind of chalk it up to this is just a natural cycle. Yes, heating and cooling of the earth is a natural cycle, not at this pace. Not at this pace. There are too many scientists, too many journals, too many sets of data that clearly show the rate at which we are warming, the rate at which all of our natural disasters are escalating, the rate at which our extreme events are happening are due to anthropogenic causes. That would be us. Okay, we are driving the largest mass extinction that we could ever imagine. And the fact that we are totally, all right, not acknowledging this or fighting it or denying it truly blows my mind. Not even considering it. See, if you think of people who say really love dogs, right? I'm a dog lover. I've got two snoring underneath me right now. Just cannot believe when someone would abuse a dog, right? I mean, it's the most upsetting thing ever. But at the same time, they're sitting there eating a pack of Oreos. How is that the same? Okay, let me make a connection here. Okay, Oreos are made with palm oil. Palm oil is grown typically through illegal deforestation. Okay, so all of these slash and burning effects that are turning into massive fires, say in South America, in Indonesia, are due to people who want to grow palm oil very cheaply using local indigenous cultures, right? Paying them very little so that the people running these companies can make massive profit while you sit there and grub on your Oreo. Okay. This is for me one of the reasons that I a long time ago I've chosen a very, very specific diet. And my diet has for a long time gotten me made fun of, gotten me called many names, and is even really kind of gotten a lot of people to just not think that like I know what I'm talking about, right? It's like this automatically belittling thing. But here's what I know is with every choice that I make, right? Every time I pick up a fork, every time I go to purchase something, every time I do anything, whether I decide to walk or drive, right? Every single time I do this, I am making an active decision as to what is going to happen in this world. Okay. I know that eating a hamburger requires an insane amount of water, an insane amount of land. Most agriculture happens not in a very kind way. And a lot of agriculture is the leading cause of deforestation. Okay, so I feel there is a social justice aspect, an environmental justice aspect to making active choices to what we're doing. And so if we're not actively engaging in looking at the data, if we're not actively engaging in being critical consumers of the data, if we are allowing certain outlets to tell us what to think, then we are actively engaging in allowing all of these things to happen. Koalas to die, our elephant populations, rhino populations, I mean, orangutans, we could keep going. The number of animals that are suffering because we're destroying their habitat, which in turn is heating up our planet, which is in turn turning into massive natural disasters, including these insane fires and extreme weather. The amount of flooding that's happening, it is mind-boggling. And yet we still have people who will say, well, as long as I have water coming out of my faucet, I don't think anything's wrong. There are millions of people who do not have water running out of a faucet. And so to be kind of that unwilling to face the truth, to me, is the fact that there's so much healing that needs to happen personally. And that's also kind of what scares me, is so much of this is emotionally based. We don't step back and use true scientific investigation. We don't step back and look at anything objectively. We take it all with subjectivity, right? And also there's a bit of selfishness. And a lot of times that's what happens, especially if we're moving from a place of trauma and a need for safety, right? We go straight into, I need to have this way. I was a little while ago, I was, whenever it came out, which wasn't that long, it was like October 1st. I was reading Metahuman by Deepak Chopra. This guy is amazing. And I love him because he's got the science and he's got the spirituality. And I appreciate it. But I was reading Metahuman, and I read a sentence that said, our prejudice is hard to overcome because it serves our selfishness. And I originally started thinking about this because, as we all know, I work with young people who struggle with substances, right? And so if we think of the prejudice against anybody who is using substances, using them chaotically or whatever, right? It's really hard to overcome our prejudice because it serves our selfishness. But I don't think that's much different than what we're seeing in this world right now. Because in order to truly address this, people would have to give up some of their comforts, right? And the idea of saying you shouldn't eat meat, one, all of a sudden turns me into this crazy hippie who doesn't know what she's talking about. And then two, it's like, but no, I love to have a steak, right? But do you need it? Is it actually healthy, right? What is it actually doing for you besides maybe tasting good? Okay. Is having a meal that is just extra tasty more important than not having a planet suitable for next generations? We're not that far off. And so the fact that we have these young people stepping up and just being powerhouses makes me so excited, because it makes me so hopeful for them. The sad thing that is happening is that they're being responded to with this selfishness. It's like, I don't want to. It's more like the adults are acting like children than the children. They go kicking and screaming, throwing temper tantrums, because, the youth are making more sense. They're actually paying attention to the data. They're actually trying to do something. And yet we just don't want to give up these luxuries that we have, and they're absolutely luxuries. They're not necessities. You know, taking a 5-minute shower as opposed to 25 minutes. Who needs to be in the shower for 25 minutes? Trying to grow plants at your house that are not native. I mean, there's just so many examples of what this looks like. And the mass misinformation to our youth is also quite devastating. I one time thought this would be just a great topic as far as just discussing, right, climate change in general. Is I have taught science for a long time, and I was in the middle of a class, and I would never go a week without having some climate conversation. And this is based on data, how science works, right? Really discussing the chemistry, the earth science. Like, let's really get into the data and you get to decide what you think, right? But I'm going to help you be a critical consumer. You don't get to be ignorant in my class, right? You have to understand, how does the world work, right? Molecularly, at an organismic level, right? How do we understand this? And why is this all so devastating right now? And these kids just, I mean, they absorbed, they are incredible. And of course, they would just get so excited to do something about it. And who always shut them down? The adults. No, 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 no. That's not what you need to be focusing on, right? Make sure that you get these math equations, okay? And, you know, nothing against my math people. But it's like, why not? This is their future they're talking about. It's their agency, right? It is their ability to take some action to do some good, right? If they said, you know what, I really would like us to actually eat organically, eat locally, pay attention to where the things we are using come from, pay attention to the amount of energy we're using, pay attention to the amount of water we're using. Really start to understand this ecosystem that we live in, right? That is freaking awesome, and we should be supporting that. But like I'm saying, so this one class, I teaching, and I would get students all the time. This adult tells me that they don't believe in this, and it's just crazy, and we're making things up, and I'm gonna put my head in a box and pretend everything's just fine because I get in my car, I drive home, and it's all totally fine and dandy for me. When the whole eastern coast of Australia is burning. So this student comes back from therapy, sits down, and I just, always welcome back, great to see you. How was your session? And she goes, oh, it was good. We were just talking about how solar panels cause climate change. My face drops. And I'm just like, what? And so I ask for more information because I'm interested in, one, how did this get started? Two, why is this what you're talking about? Three, what? And it was complete misinformation based on a single source of bad data. Okay, when we're looking at data, we have to look at who was funding it, what was the methodology, is it reproducible, right? And so often we're like, oh, we're going to pay these people to do this research to say exactly what I want them to say so that I can show you all, my constituents, who are emotionally tied to the things that I'm saying to you, and you'll just eat it up. Instead of stepping back and going, are you actually telling me the truth? But so often it's easier if they're telling me what I want to hear, it doesn't matter. So we're looking at a world where we are seeing catastrophic devastation. And we're okay with it. Because we're not doing anything. And by not doing anything, we are actively saying we're okay with it. And I just don't understand how you can hear that and allow it to sink in and not have your heart break. And if you listen to this and you're thinking, well, you're wrong, or you're getting angry, or you just turned it off already and have, not even paying attention to this part, but it's causing you to want to fight back. What is it in you? What is actually happening that's causing that response? Most of the time, it's because we feel guilty. Most of the time, it's because we know we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm not saying that everyone just all of a sudden needs to stop and flip and change their entire world, but maybe stop and think. Maybe take one step. Maybe listen to these young people who are like, they're reading through report after report. They're not just making things up. No kid wants to be that person. They don't want to put themselves in the face of this, but they feel like no one else is stepping up for them. And how can we do that? How can we be okay letting them do the work? We should be allowing them to be kids and allow them to ask for help and have us actually step up and do something, as opposed to try and belittle, demean, or make them like I would like to just freak out and yell and get crazy, but I've never done that. As far as this conversation goes, I can get very passionate about it, and I can go into a lot of data and information, and if you're around me, I'm not going to let you waste water or use massively wasteful things. It's just not going to happen. And I'm going to try and encourage you to consider other options. But I know very well and very clearly that even in those moments, this is why I love youth so much, is right there. They're willing to listen. They're willing to be open. These conversations are really hard with adults. And it's just really hard because so often they're just not in a place to hear it. But we don't have time. We don't have time. Our largest forests are on fire. The amount of biodiversity is rapidly declining. Our ocean temperatures are just getting higher. If we don't have an ocean, we don't exist. I mean, this has been stated time and time again. So, whereas this entire conversation is not about koalas, it's about what these koalas are representing. What is it that you're going to do? What is it you're willing to do? What amount of ignorance can you give up? What amount of selfishness can you give up in order to truly make a difference? And recognizing that in a year we have a very serious vote to make. Paying attention to which one of these is truly talking about this and talking about it in an educated, intelligent manner. I'd be happy to tell you. Anyway, if you would like more information on this, you could look up all of this stuff. If you'd like more information on what you can do, let me know. And otherwise, I hope you do the right thing.